Imagine this World War II scenario. You're standing on a battlefield with your enemy disarmed and begging for mercy, a prisoner of war. Your 1911 sidearm is loaded at your hip, and the enemy has even been courteous enough to dig his own grave. If you let him live and walk away, he might retaliate. He knows your position. There is a risk he might return with his own allies and kill everyone who is trusting you with their lives. Or you can shoot him and bury him and eliminate any risk he might pose. That's the decision that Captain Miller is faced with in Saving Private Ryan. He chooses mercy against the adamant warnings of the men who follow him as their commander, and he is punished for it soon after. If you've seen the movie, the gruesome irony of Miller's death is that he is shot and killed by the same German soldier who he released and set free. The story itself punishes Miller for his mercy, and this is blatant and intentional. YouTube's deep dives and reviews about this movie will focus on how realistic the D-Day invasion was, the mix-up between the two bald Germans, or even some far-fetched allegory about how a cowardly soldier represents America's reluctance to save the Jews from the Holocaust.
What are you talking about?
And yet, no one seems to focus much on this pivotal sequence of events.
You gotta be kidding me. We'll let him go?
He's a POW arriving. Can't take him with us. Our guys will pick him up sooner or later.
Yeah, only if he doesn't get picked up by his own Wehrmacht first and then thrown back into circulation.
Upham.
Why did the movie's director, Steven Spielberg, make this choice? He could have had Miller killed in any number of ways. He could have even stuck with the original screenplay in which Miller survives. If Miller dies because of choosing mercy, then Spielberg's lesson to us is clear. If you allow your enemy to live when you have the chance to kill him, you deserve his retaliation. So why does this matter?
I don't know. That's a little dark. What do you think about that?
To answer that, we need to take a step back and look at how this movie has been reviewed in the past 10 years on YouTube, because those reviews, especially from young men professing to be historians, could not stand in stronger contrast to the message Spielberg was sending us about mercy, with the way Miller died, who killed him, and Upham's decision to execute the same POW that Miller spared. And it was Spielberg's decision. This version of Miller's death sequence does not appear in the original screenplay by Robert Rodat. In fact, in the original script, Miller survives, and Upham dies instead. And Corporal Timothy Upham is also not a coward. He dies valiantly, shot through the back while resupplying ammo. This change Spielberg made serves as strong evidence in a larger controversy you see online about Saving Private Ryan, whether its message is pro-war or anti-war. But a pro-war message is simple and easy to define. Number 1, our war is necessary and just.
Reports from the front indicate James did his duty in combat with great courage and steadfast dedication, even after he was informed of the tragic loss your family has suffered in this great campaign to rid the world of tyranny and oppression.
Number 2, our war is ordained by God.
If God's on our side, who the hell could be on theirs?
If God be for us, who could be against us?
Yeah, what'd I say?
Blessed be the Lord, my strength, which teaches my hands to war and my fingers to fight.
Number 3, we are righteous and good. Our enemy is evil and merciless and must be completely annihilated.
Don't shoot! Let him burn! Pointing him to tie in my flanks. Over. What? What? I'm sorry, I can't understand what you're saying.
Now, at first glance, some say Saving Private Ryan is an anti-war movie. It humanizes American soldiers by showing them breaking down and crying when they're overwhelmed or suffering from shell shock. However, none of their vulnerability ever detracts from their obvious belief in the righteousness of their overall objective, to defeat the Nazi war machine.
I have my orders too, sir. They don't include me abandoning my post.
I understand that, but this changes things.
I don't see that it does, sir.
How does this differ from the anti-war movie? It's important to note that the anti-war movie is almost never anti-soldier. The soldier himself is an exploited victim, misled and manipulated by his own ungrateful government, who took advantage of his patriotism for their own malevolent purposes. We see this in movies like Platoon, All Quiet on the Western Front, and Johnny Got His Gun. In these stories, all soldiers are exploited as disposable hamburger, and their behavior is as barbaric, cruel, merciless, and evil as the enemy they were sent to conquer. In the anti-war movie, sometimes the soldiers themselves find their situation ludicrous and spend the movie counting the days until they can go home.
Hey, white boy, what you waiting for? That hole ain't gonna dig itself. Come on, boy, get your dick skin on that thing. Dig. You can get all day. Dig, dig.
Somebody once wrote, hell is the impossibility of reason. That's what this place feels like. Hell. I hate it already, and it's only been a week.
In either case, nothing of value is achieved in any battle. No sacrifice is justified. No objective is accomplished. The men are wasted and die in vain. The intention, the message of the anti-war movie is that war is always a waste of human lives on both sides, and no one is ever victorious. The overall message is intentionally cynical, depressing, and nihilistic. For example, if you read the real correspondence of the World War II time period, diaries and journals from soldiers on the front lines, letters from home or sent back to the States, you'll see that not only did most young men go willingly and enthusiastically to the European or Pacific theater, but that men who could not enlist for medical reasons, such as heart problems or physical handicaps, felt depressed, sometimes to the point of suicide, at the idea of not being able to follow their friends overseas. That's World War II. Compare that to the last scene in Platoon, where, as one of a handful of survivors of a battle in which the Americans were so overrun by VC, they are intentionally bombed from above by their own side.
For the record, it's my call. Dump everything you've got left on my pod. I say again, expend all remaining in my perimeter.
One soldier is so scared to be folded into the next engagement that he stabs himself in the thigh in order to be sent home. Does that sound like Saving Private Ryan?
All my strength, hasty to help me.
Do we see that behavior? No. And by this rationale, it is in the pro-war camp.
War. It's fantastic.
But what about the Americans' cruelty in Spielberg's film, you might say? What about when they cry out, "Don't shoot! Let them burn!" Or shoot Nazis when they are trying to escape, or execute them when they're trying to surrender? Isn't Spielberg, as YouTube historians often speculate, trying to dispel our myths about the greatest generation, trying to deconstruct them as being just as vindictive and petty as we might be ourselves? Or is he in fact vindicating their cruelty, their barbarity, as justified and necessary? Does he give us a plot point, maybe, an event, to indicate that if you show mercy to your enemy, you should not expect him to be merciful in return?
Upham. Cam, you just let the enemy go.
That shot was absolutely intentional. Spielberg wanted you to know that Miller was killed by the man he set free. The POW everyone but Upham was insisting must be executed. In the final battle at Ramel, while cowering to avoid being seen, Upham alone bears witness to his German friend killing Miller while he is already wounded. Moments later, taking advantage of the chaos and the changing tide of the battle as the P-51s bomb the Axis side of the bridge from overhead, Upham grabs a rifle and commands Steamboat Willie to surrender. Willie smiles, drops his weapon, holds up his hands and tells the other two,
Ich kenne den Soldaten. Ich kenne den Mann.
Halte die Schnauze.
Finally, as if to contradict this, and to contradict the mercy he had insisted on before, Upham executes Willie. Did he do it for revenge? Or to teach us something, as the audience? In effect, is Spielberg trying to teach us something he learned about the futility of mercy through the course of making this film? And here's a curveball that makes Upham's final decision to execute the surrendered Steamboat Willie even more consequential.
There's a sort of nerdy, cowardly character in Saving Private Ryan, at least at the start, Upham. How do you relate to him in the film?
Well, I think he's me.
Huh? Come again?
Upham. How do you relate to him in the film?
Well, I think he's me.
Yes, it's true. Spielberg himself, in a retrospective interview about the movie, was talking about which one of the characters he would be most like if he had served in the European campaign. With humility, the director said he'd like to believe he'd be like Miller or Horvath, but he'd probably be Upham, frozen with fear on the stairs, failing to resupply his comrades with ammo until it's too late, insisting on mercy and regretting it long after it would do any good. Spielberg's point is that no one in the 21st century knows what they would be like. We'd like to believe we would be the sacrificial hero. We are all now 5 generations removed from the men who stormed the beach at Normandy. Transported in a time machine to June 6, 1944, would most of us be Jackson, the gifted sniper quoting scripture?
My goodness, my fortress, my high tower, and my deliverer.
Or would we be Corporal Upham, interjecting his opinion when it wasn't asked for?
This is such bullshit.
Y'all got that right.
Bullshit. Right, this is bullshit. Shooting a prisoner, that'd be okay.
Shut your
That's
mouth.
against the goddamn rules.
Yeah, well, the goddamn rules just walked off with your new friend.
Signaling his virtue by calling for mercy on behalf of the enemy, screaming in the face of a superior officer, telling him how to do his job.
Are you letting this happen? Captain, you see this?
Crumbling in dejected cowardice on the stairs as our comrade wails out for help, and a blade is pushed down into his chest because we lacked the fortitude to simply ascend and shoot his assailant in the back of the head. Would we all end up like Upham, finally learning the error of our audacity, our hubris, of presuming to cast judgment on our forebears for their brutality by executing the one man we had worked so hard to save? It's worth considering.
How about no, Scott, okay?
A final note about Captain Miller.
I think we should be able to hit him from grenade range.
Maybe I should go up the middle, sir.
The way you run, I don't think so.
Maybe I should go left, sir.
Maybe you should shut up.
Captain Miller, to my mind, is one of the top 5 most noble characters in all of cinema. A school teacher from a small town in Pennsylvania, he represents the very best of the greatest generation, the quintessential World War II veteran, because he was not a career soldier. He rose in the ranks completely by merit and dedication, not nepotism or even specialized training. He was that rare, ordinary man who could adapt immediately to extraordinary circumstances.
Tell us what to do.
I could use a little more morphine.
Morphine, sir. Okay.
And his objective was never self-aggrandizing or narcissistic. People often cite the best line from the film as Miller's last words to Ryan before dying.
James. Earn this. Earn it.
But people overlook another line from Miller, which carries far greater weight.
Our objective is to win the war.
It's the moment when Miller makes the tragic decision to assault the radio tower. One of his rangers, Mellish, asks him why they should take an unnecessary risk to take the nest when they could so easily go around it. Their mission is only to find Private Ryan, nothing more, nothing less. The exchange goes like this.
We can still skip it and accomplish our mission. I mean, this isn't our mission, right, sir?
Oh, that's what you want to do, Mellish? You just want to leave it here so they can ambush the next company that comes along?
No, sir, that's not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying it seems like an unnecessary risk given our objective, sir.
Our objective is to win the war.
In those 7 words, Miller encapsulates American exceptionalism and the greatest generation perfectly. He understands that even if he finds it ridiculous to waste a Ranger battalion on a public relations mission to save the last remaining son of a family that has already lost 3, that's not his decision. And in fact, that's not really what any of them are doing in France. Every step they take into enemy-occupied territory is a chance to retake lost ground, kill the enemy, and prevent their further occupation or reinforcements. He realizes that no matter what mission he's given, the objective never changes. The truth is, that's what they all believe. That's why Reiben threatens to walk away but never does. It's why Miller gives in to Private Ryan's demand that they stay and fight, when Miller could have just as easily knocked the kid in the head with his 1911, shackled him, and dragged him back to HQ. He would have made it home to his wife, saved the lives of his remaining battalion. He stayed because he understood the objective to win the war was larger than his ludicrous public relations mission, larger than what he wanted or what he felt he had earned. Miller's story resonates with us because we'd like to believe that if we could step through the celluloid into the movie, we would not be Upham, that we could be Miller, or Jackson, or Horvath, or Mellish. 4 men who died in a battle to save one, when they could have so easily have walked away and abandoned him. As Christ himself said, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." Christ announced this to his disciples not for his own self-aggrandizement, but so that they would understand how much he loved them. The men who died for us at Normandy and the remainder of the European theater did so out of love for their children, their grandchildren, and the survival of all their future generations. Unlike most of us today, they were willing to plant trees under whose shade they did not expect to sit. Anyway, thanks for listening. Whether you agree or disagree with my take on this, I'd love to hear your comments either way.
How about new?